found the role of knowledge to be interesting in the film, and I feel like yes, there is knowledge of the Bible, but I feel like in general, it's the devil, Black Phillip, that's associated with knowledge. It's always he's always bringing a book to someone, right? Sign the devil's book or read this book with me, mother. Caleb says, or we don't know if it's really Caleb or not. That's another instance of we don't know if he's in heaven or hell or damned or saved, or whether it's a vision the witch is sending or a real vision from heaven while the raven is
feasting on her nipple.
On her breast, and in that sense, there's ecstasy and agony mixed together again, just like we saw in Caleb's death. It seems like the devil is associated with knowledge. He's also associated with like material goods as well. So it's interesting in the sense that the father is trying to get material goods, from the earth, harvesting and farming, whatever. The devil's definitely associated with material goods,
Oh, small aside there.
Yeah.
So Kate has the blood on her nightgown the morning after, and Will doesn't notice. I just whenever you mentioned the Scarlet Letter, wasn't the main lady of that book, I forget her name, wasn't
Esther Prynne?
Yeah, wasn't Esther Prynne made to wear the Scarlet Letter A over her
A for adultery
over her left breast?
I don't remember. I know it was like on her chest, but it may have been above her left breast. That's very interesting. Yeah. And that's a sign, I feel like, in The Witch of a stunting of generativity, right? That ability to provide for the family or to have children or whatever, or to sustain those children with breast milk has been taken away. But yeah, I feel like the book that the devil brings is a sign of knowledge. He's telling her when she can't write, he says, "I'll guide your hand," right? So he's like a writing tutor in that sense, I thought that was pretty interesting. Knowledge is very, like we've talked before about, they don't know whether or not Samuel's in hell. They don't know later whether or not Caleb's in hell. So this lack of knowledge is, I think I would associate the devil with knowledge, giving knowledge, disseminating knowledge, and God with, well, and if you go back to Eden, I mean, knowledge was what was the downfall of Eve, was the downfall of mankind, and so of course it would be associated with the devil. Whereas Christ, or God gives very selective knowledge, and often knowledge that obscures itself, or knowledge from a book that contradicts itself in many cases.
And I mentioned before in one of the other videos, when it was the Fallen video, whenever we were talking about the Grigori, the Watchers, who birthed the Nephilim with their human partners.
Yeah.
One of them, one of the Grigori, one of the things that they taught the humans was writing.
Oh, fascinating.
Among the other.
And that would have been considered a rebellious act?
Yes, because like there were a bunch of secret hidden knowledge things that humans weren't supposed to learn, like writing, meteorology, herb lore.
Yeah. And they talk about the devil. I don't know if they use the word Satan, but at one point Thomason calls him the adversary, which Satan means adversary or enemy. And then they specifically mention Lucifer, which is light bearer or light bringer. I think bearer.
Yeah, light bearer.
Which I would associate possibly with knowledge as well.
Illuminating the mind.
Yeah. So it's interesting that knowledge, illumination, education would be considered sinful.
And in Job, which Kate refers to, she says, "I'm like Job's wife."
Job's wife. Yeah.
In Job, Satan isn't like this the wicked one, as Will mentions when Caleb's having his like screaming fit before dying. In Job, he's more like a prosecuting attorney. He goes up to God and is like, "Hey, you keep saying this dude is super tight with you. I don't buy it. Let me test him. Let me see if he's as good as you keep saying he is."
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, if you take what's happening in The Witch and the Salem witch trials, like you mentioned, and things like that, and you extrapolate it into our history, we have a lot of instances. If you take abstinence-based education, right? This is quote-unquote education that annuls knowledge, that hides knowledge, that keeps people from having it, and it's not a good thing. The more abstinence-based education you have, the more unwanted pregnancies you have, the more STDs you have, you know, and so in that sense, sexuality and knowledge being tied together as well, yeah.
And actually thinking back on like on like education on how it's evolved into the modern American standard. With the fact that education is being viewed is being being called a sin. It's the fact that right now in modern day America, people want to learn, and people want to learn about what's going on, and the internet and social media has a lot to do with that now. Has a lot to do with that now, thanks to the want for more knowledge than the normal human can ever handle.
Yeah, and it's a ridiculous amount of knowledge that's out now. And one of the problems people have is, you know, of course, they don't have critical thinking skills, so they don't know how to figure out what is important and what's not. But also, there's a lot of people that they become so overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge out there that they're just like, oh, everything's fake news except part of this cult of personality. I'm going to make it more about personality than it is about information.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe kind of shows that in our history, we tend to associate knowledge with pride, but also we're envious of those that are knowledgeable, right? And definitely, you know, the devil / Black Phillip is offering that at the end, right? Would you like to see the world, right? Would you like to have knowledge? Would you like to have knowledge of this book? He's implying, would you like to have knowledge of how to read and write, perhaps?
Yeah.
In a way, he's offering, like, Thomason the chance to better herself more than she ever could have on her own. And education does that a lot of the time. Like, the more you learn, like, the more you can grasp, and that's honestly, he's offering something that no one can really take away from you. Once you learn something, you have it.
And in offering knowledge, he's offering a way to unknit the hierarchies in that world, right? To say that it doesn't matter that you're a woman, it doesn't matter that you're basically a child, it's, you know, this knowledge can take you places you never would have imagined. That if you had stayed with this Christian family and everyone had stayed alive, and you would have had such a limited life as you could have never had with me.
Yeah.